And we're live. Last sound check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. YouTube is saying the stream is healthy, so that's good. I think we're gonna find out very quickly. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. We successfully made it past the first week of June. Today's gonna be a hot one. I can already tell. I was out. Well, I'm kind of sweating right now already from just doing the morning rounds, and that's just That's just how it is. We're still technically spring, but this is summer growing now, and it's pretty interesting that we've had a few years with the same type of weather patterns. So it wasn't unexpected. I didn't welcome it, but here we are. We're in summer growing, so I'm kind of curious today to know more about how you grow in hot weather or summer weather, but more specifically, when we go from the transition to spring into summer abruptly, how do you approach that? Do you do anything differently? Do you use shade cloths? Do you maybe strategically place plants in different spots? That's easier said than done. If you're in containers, it is easier. If you're growing in ground, or if you're in raised beds, the plants are replanted, so it's going to be tougher to move. But I'm really curious to know how you grow. Hi, Jay. Nice to see you. So as everybody rolls into the chats today, I'm really curious to know what your approach is to hot weather growing. So today we're supposed to be knocking on 90 degrees, and I wouldn't be surprised if we actually go into the 90s. Last week it was mostly mid to high 80s, which, like I said, it wasn't. It's not a. It's been a pattern for the last 3 years, so we kind of expect it, kind of maneuver around it. There's different ways to help our plants grow. But at the end of the day, 90 degrees is 90 degrees, and plants that don't like 90 degrees are going to be very fussy. And I have one to show here you later today. Uh, it's just where we're at. So even though we're still technically spring, it's basically summer growing. So this past week, I shifted plants around the nursery. I've talked about the hoop house before, the high tunnel I have. Those plants that I had in there, the more spring type plants like the sugar snap peas, I pulled out. Not all of them. I left some of the younger ones in there, but I pulled maybe a dozen sugar snap containers out because I needed those for my programming, which is one thing I wanted to chat about briefly too. So last weekend I had mentioned that this was the first week for the June programming at the senior living communities, which was a lot of fun, and that's why I wanted to briefly report on, because this week was the first week that we actually got to harvest spring vegetables and fruiting plants. So I'll give you the top three that seem to be the most favorite: sugar snap peas, strawberries or June bearing strawberries, and then the third one, which I guess not too big of a surprise, but being Minnesotan, here, the rhubarb. When I brought the rhubarb containers in and I asked for 3 volunteers to harvest rhubarb, they're in 7 gallon, actually, those are 10-gallon containers. Just pulling stalks out of the rhubarb bags was a lot of fun. And even for those who were watching who didn't volunteer to harvest, it was still a lot of fun to watch somebody else harvest a actual rhubarb plant that's not in the ground like you would traditionally grow it. So that was this last week, and then that goes for the whole month of June. But I did mention to one of the directors this week that towards the end of the month, we're probably not going to have the same plants that I have this week because this week and next week are heavy sugar snap peas. I can guarantee you by the end of this month, I'm not gonna, if I do have any sugar snap peas left, they're probably not gonna be as good quality as the peas are right now. Because as we get hotter, the days sustainably get hotter, the sugar snap pea quality goes down. Because the plant's trying to finish reproduce its cycle before it just throws its hands up and says, I'm done. So um, that's okay. But that was this last week, so we got to harvest spring plants. Some other plants I brought in were leafy greens, like I like to try to add lots of colors. So I brought one plant, and I'm not sure if I've shared this with you before, but it's called new red fire lettuce. So it's mostly green leaf lettuce, but it's got red towards the top of the leaves, and it's very cool. I could see why they got that name, uh, new red fire lettuce. I also brought in edible flowers, so lots of violas. We harvested those, and then lots of herbs. So spring herbs that do well now, well, that we're doing well up until this week, or cilantro. I'm just saying that as I'm looking at my cilantro in our bed up by the house. The cilantro over here that we have, and then the ones I have in containers, they're already throwing up the white flag of surrender, and they're trying to go to seed. So it's just what it is. But that was this week, and it was a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to the rest of this month as we get finished harvesting spring vegetables and fruiting plants. So let's see. Uh, JBot says we had extreme heat yesterday and today. A storm came in and things cooled off and got humid. Yeah, we had a storm roll through yesterday, not in ours, north of where we're at. But I was keeping my eyes glued to the radar because there was a severe thunderstorm attached to that front that came through. And even though I have a reinforced hoop house that will keep hail off those sensitive plants, a lot of my high value plants are still outside unprotected, other than a few layers of row cover. So I've had to do it before where if we have a severe thunderstorm and there's hail identified, I have to run out there with the family and we have to move the plants under the eaves of the barn just to keep the hail off them. But that's just a part of living out here in the upper Midwest too. Uh, Thank you. Like how animated you get when you mentioned the new senior program. It's a lot of fun. It's one of my favorite parts. Well, actually, I have a lot of favorite parts, but one thing I would really like to share with you is that every community is different because the people are different. So usually within 2 to 3 minutes of the program, well, not even sometimes starting, like before when we're just chatting and getting warmed up, I can tell how the flow is going to go. Some communities, there's a lot of jokesters in there, so it's just very comical and it's a lot of fun. Other ones are very curious, so they'll ask a lot of really good questions. And it's just very cool to see the dynamic in different communities. And then even the difference between assisted living and then memory care, that's pretty stark too. It's different dynamics, of course. But what I noticed when I started working with assisted living, not the memory care, but assisted living, those guys and gals are, it's more of like a social hour for them. So it's lots of chatting, lots of questions. It's a lot of fun. But it's different dynamics. So I have to adjust my program sometime on the fly depending on how the group or whomever I'm working with reacts at that time. And then sometimes that's I always open the same, and that's kind of like I don't want to call it a test, but it's kind of a gauge to see how this session's going to go. And I do that with I always say we're gonna wake up our senses, our sense of smell, and that's when I do the first round or the appetizer, as I call it, of herbs. So for this week, we did it with three different mint plants, and I think I've shared this mint plants with you before on the live streams. But I have, right now I have chocolate mint, mojito mint. This week, mojito mint was the popular one. It also has the strongest aroma too, so it's really, that's gonna, if you have maybe a weak sense of smell or your sense of smell is not as strong as it once was, definitely the mojito mint, most of the participants can smell that. And then I also had peppermint. So that's the appetizer. I sometimes will hand those plants around, or I'll walk them around with some of my helpers, and that's how I kind of gauge to see how the participants react, and then I can adjust on the fly the rest of the program. Some programs I have to do a little more instruction on how to interact with the plants or harvesting and whatnot. But honestly, when I brought the sugar snap peas, I didn't really have to say much. It is intuitive on how you harvest the sugar snap peas. So I had three big containers, put them in different tables, and then people just started picking up. And then we talked about uh, sugar snap peas and who grew those, what type of varieties they have. And I have a variety I want to show you here, because I think this is the first weekend I've been able to show you the special sugar snap pea. See, red fire is a popular open pollinated loose leaf lettuce. Yep. Highly prized for its deeply ruffled ruby red leaves. Yep. And it does have good flavor too, so that's one thing I like about it. The other leafy green I brought was black seeded Simpson, and I only did that because that it's marketed as a warm. Well, honestly, when you get down to lettuce, there's aren't really a lot of varieties that do really well in the large temperature swings like we've had here recently. But Black Sage Simpson, it's usually marketed as it's heat tolerant. Um, but when you go like 30 to 40-degree temperature swings, it doesn't matter what the lettuce variety is, it's gonna struggle because it has to acclimate to that temperature swing. So I saw that some of my black seeded Simpson lettuce grow bags were looking a little annoyed. So I pulled them out and then I took them to session and we lightly harvested them just so they knew that they were still being loved and they're wanted. Um, yeah. Let's see. Jay said, I'm picturing you throwing your body over the plants in hail. Gardner Scott has invested in hail cloth for both hail and shade. Okay, thank you very much, because that was my first question I wanted to ask. Is maybe you know Jay, or maybe somebody else in the chat knows what if you have used shade cloth or hail cloth. I haven't used anything like that. What I do use is I have old high tunnel or my hoop house plastic. It's 5 years old, so last year I had to remove that from the tunnel, and then I put a new cover on. But the old one, it's worn, but it's still in a decent enough shape to where I use that for two purposes. One, I use that for extra blanket when we have frost. So the plants outside, they'll have a frost blanket anyway. But if we're going into like the mid 20s, I'll throw that over the top of that. It's just an extra layer barrier, and that does really well. I've also used that as I guess, a makeshift hail blanket, and haven't really tested on anything big. We had a hailstorm here about a month ago. I think I mentioned it because we had storm chasers from all over the Midwest outside of Minnesota that were trying to make a claim on my insurance. That's all I want to say on that because I had to shut my phone off for a week. They're so aggressive on the phone calls. Um, but the shade cloth and hail cloth, if you use anything like that, I would love to hear like what you use. So today I'm putting my shade cloth up on the high tunnel, and actually I could switch this too. There we go. This week. I'm putting up the shade cloth. I have it's a 30% or rated at 30%, so that knocks the sunlight down by 30%, and then it's white. I was looking at aluminum reflective shade cloth, but I couldn't find anything that was less than 50%. And I don't know. I'm not sure if I really need it this far north, honestly. The big thing is I just need to bring down the temperature of the hoop house, and the shade cloth will knock it down about 10-ish degrees, which is fine because 90-degree day, I should be, well, on a 90-degree day here, it's going to be 100 degrees in the hoop house. So with that shade cloth knocking down the sunlight intensity, it will bring it down lower than what it otherwise would be. When I first started growing, uh, venting that hoop house or the high tunnel was not first and foremost in my mind, and I almost nuked the first round of plants I had out there because I had the sides down. I had everything down, and I think it was gonna get like 65, 70 degrees. Didn't think anything of it. I went out there like 10:30, and everything's like drooping, and that was my first lesson on how important it is to properly ventilate and protect the high tunnel because it will get hot very quickly. It's nice to speed up the growth of vegetables and fruiting plants in the springtime, but on a day like today where there's not a lot of clouds and lots of sunlight, it will heat up very, very fast. I have some, Jay says I have some shade cloth and also got some balcony privacy shade cloth. Nice. Bargain shopping. When you say bargain shopping, was that Amazon or is that I'm not endorsing anybody here, but I'm kind of curious. Okay, so shade cloth's going up today. I still have more melons to transplant or transplant their final containers, which those are going to be going into 7 or 10 gallon grow bags. My mini love, which I was able to get again this year, last year was weird. I couldn't get any mini love watermelon seeds, and that's a hybrid. So I think I'm wondering if the actual production seed farms for Mini Love had a crop fail or something, since it's a hybrid. Like all the big name seed companies, I couldn't find it anywhere. Um, but Mini Love goes into 7 gallon grow bags, and then I also have some bigger melons that are I'm gonna be doing in 10 gallon grow bags for the first time. I've grown these in ground in raised beds before, but I'm gonna see how they do in uh, grow bags or 10 gallons. And the first one is Moon and Stars watermelon. That's a open pollinated heirloom. And if you've never seen Moon and Stars watermelon, you're in for a magical experience. The first time I saw a picture of this, I was smitten. So I've grown a couple, a few times now, um, but it is a very cool melon. So it's got a dark green rind, but in one spot of it, it's just so cool how this plant looks. But on one spot, you'll see like a yellow spot, and then scattered or like kind of like peppered over the rest of the melon, you're gonna see like these smaller yellow spots, like the stars. So it's just a very cool plant called Moon and Stars watermelon. That's going in 10 gallon grow bags. And then I also have muskmelon or cantaloupe. And then Minnesota midget is a new variety melon that I'm growing this year also. So we'll see how those do. Those ones I'm definitely gonna be following up with you guys on the live streams on Saturdays because the Minnesota midget I haven't grown that yet. Probably should have grown it by now with the name Minnesota midget, but that's okay. Okay, J-Boss says I got some at a yard sale and then 90% off at the end of the season. Nice. Nice. That's the way to do it. I like shopping in the off season for stuff too. Okay. So that's basically it for this week. I have a lot of plants. I think next week I'll do a video and I can show you what everything looks like. But all the little zones around the property and like 75, 80 plants I had right here off to my right last weekend I showed you, they're all over on the other side, the west side of the barn over there now, and those are the ones that exposed. Um, but they're doing fine. So if I'll briefly talk about this too, because how I harden off plants off, or how I harden off plants or get them used to outside is not typical, but I do know some other people like Robin Gardens uses the same method, so that's cool. Uh, but most of the information out there on hardening off plants, you're gonna gradually expose your plants to more sunlight and varying temperatures. So either that's overnight lows being lower than where they were inside, or the daytime highs being higher. So exposure to those two items, and then also sometimes wind. Um, if you have a fan, and I've talked about this before too, but if you don't use a fan with your seedlings, I strongly recommend it. That's going to help with a lot of fungal issues too. But besides that, it's going to toughen up your plants. So here in the upper Midwest, we get lots of wind. Not so much here in Minnesota versus like Iowa, but until this cornfield off to my left is full, there's going to be wind whipping across that field right into our yard. Um, so what I do is I use row covers and then I use layers. So those plants that were over here, they're underneath these oak trees that are behind me. So the oak trees serve as a pretty good sunshade for those seedlings. And then they went from here to the other side of the barn where they've been since basically last week. I started with 3 layers of A19 Agribon row covers, and then every couple days I'll just remove a layer. So right now I have the squash, the summer and winter squash is under just 1 layer of Agribon now, and then this next week they're going to be going out to the hoop house or the high tunnel. And then the slicing and Roma tomatoes, they still have 2 layers. And that's just something I kind of monitor to see how they're doing. If they're like the second day, if I take a layer off and after the second day they're still looking a little flustered, I'll just leave it that for another day or two, and then I'll come out if they're looking like they're coping okay with the increased sunlight. Then I'll remove another layer until I get down to a single layer, and at that point, they go from there into the hoop house. Now, that's how I do it right now because we've had the crazy temperature increase here. Now, if we had normal temperatures where we had like 70s for highs and not knocking on 90, I would actually move them from here straight into the hoop house and then use the layered method on those plants in the high tunnel or hoop house. But with the sunny days like we have and the heat, it's just from past experience, if I put them right out into that high tunnel right now, they're gonna struggle, and I probably lose quite a few seedlings. So that's just something I've learned over years is there are different ways of hardening off seedlings, and that's how I do it for mine. So if you have row covers, then by all means use those. It works pretty well. Okay, J-Boss says the Moon and Stars watermelon is a visually stunning heirloom, known for its dark green rind speckled with bright yellow dots. Yep, yep. uh, Imagine Andy moving the plants, but having them follow him like little baby chicks. Yeah, they're not so much, but we have kittens, so some of our barn mamas have new kittens, and I counted 9 last night, so we have quite a few more barn cats, which is great because we don't have a mouse problem here anymore. We also still have quite a few uh, pocket gopher, pocket gophers, and since I have the nursery plants in grow bags, I don't have a problem with the pocket gophers. Specifically, I do have problems with mice. Mice will chew through grow bags, but with the the literal army of cats that we have here now, anything that small on 4 legs is probably going to get swiped up by a cat. Um, so that's the cool thing about the the barn cats is they keep the mice in check. And my daughters and I were talking about yesterday. It's kind of interesting because the next generation of cats that or kittens that the parents have, they're getting more friendly to us. So um, when we first got the original cats, they were feral, so they stayed out in the barn. We'd feed them every once in a while, but I saw them all the time catching mice and whatnot, which is why we hired them, right? But the kittens, they came right up to my feet last night, which is kind of cool because the parents never they don't get that close to us. They tolerate us because they know we keep them fed and watered, but the kittens just came over and said hi. So so anyway, that's what's going on this week. It's we're in full summer temperature mode, so shade cloth comes out. It's watering every day. That's one thing too I want to share with you. Grow bags are fantastic for a few reasons. Few reasons. Retaining water on hot days is not one of them. So my carrot grow bags this year, I started doing bottom watering here. I let my customer gardens, everything's bottom watered as it is. But here at the plant nursery, I started bottom watering the carrots for one reason and one reason only. When we have the suspended hot days with the foliage on the top, the carrot tops, I've lost carrots in the past. Not the root part itself, but the actual foliage on top of the surface. If I get any type of high humidity environment in there, and couple that with heat, I tend to get fungus problems and the leaves will actually just rot. It's kind of like getting mushy lettuce when you have the high humidity days and heat that go along with that. Same thing that's going on. It's just a perfect breeding ground for fungi. So a couple ways to try to maneuver around that is bottom watering. Second way is to keep the tops as dry as possible. So I think I mentioned this last week, but what I do on some plants, I do top water, like sugar snap peas. I'll just shake the little trellis that I have to try to shake off any excess water. Try to water down at the base anyway, but there's so many sugar snap peas in there that it's impossible to water it without. And at some point in time, I want to bottom water all the plants in the nursery, but I don't have the infrastructure set up. But in the meantime, just shaking the leaves of the plants after I water, that seems to be doing pretty good right now. But I'm gonna switch into this right here, the plant show, because last week we talked about nitrogen. So there's just to refresh, there's two types of nitrogen, and if you know what that bird is, I would love to know. I was trying to research. It's a crazy noise, and I was trying to figure it out. I don't know. I don't know what that bird is. It's a Minnesota bird apparently with a crazy call. Um, but last week we talked about two forms of nitrogen that plants can take up, and the first one is ammonium. We talked about how the monocrop corn or field corn farmers in the Midwest especially use anhydrous ammonia, and after they inject that into the soil, it goes through a nitrification process. But you have ammonium that becomes it has a positive charge to it, and most soil has a negative charge to it, so the ammonium will stick to the soil without washing out. So that's one form, ammonium. And then we have nitrate, which has a negative charge. That's also available to the plants, or the plants can use nitrate. The problem, or I should say the downside to nitrate, is that since it has a negative charge and soil tends to have a negative charge, just like magnets, opposites attract, likes repel, and this is why sometimes if you hear about nitrogen runoff from farms or maybe residential grass lawns, that's what's going on is nitrate's not going to stick around very long unless the plant can absorb it, but the plant can only absorb so much, so any excess is just going to get washed out down the river or into the watershed. So Oh, American bittern, the Virginia rail, or the yellow-headed blackbird. Thank you. Appreciate that. I figured somebody in this live stream would know what that sound is, so that's fantastic. Species are notorious for making loud, out of this world sounds in the state's marshes and wetlands. Yeah, it's it'll wake you up. And we have quite a few of them here because we have right off over here off screen we have some woods about 2 acres or so, and then there's a valley down there behind us that's miles long. So we have quite a bit of wildlife around us. There you go. There it is again. Okay, so having talked about nitrogen and the different forms of nitrogen fertilizers we can use for our plants, I have 3 strawberry plants that I want to share with you today. And all 3 strawberry plants have fruit on them, but the difference is there's 3 different fertilizer programs that I have with these. So I want to show you what it looks like when you use different types of fertilizer with them. So I think I'll start with the prima donna first. This is the one that I take around to all my demo sessions. So this one I've been growing since February. I think I've shared it with you guys before, but you can see I got fruits on here. This is called All Star. It's a June bearing strawberry. This is the second year for this. So I planted this bare root last year. I overwintered it in this grow bag, and then this February I brought it out of storage, brought it to my basement, put it under grow lights, warmed it up, and then it's at this point now. So you can see all the fruit on here. And looks like I got something from the oak tree right behind me already. But this one, you could see how many flowers and fruit are on there. This thing's still crazy. Most strawberry plants, if you grow them in a garden, are not going to look like this. This one's been getting a lot of TLC because this is my show plant that I take out with me. So if I have a sales meeting or a meeting with a potential new client, this is the plant that I'm bringing. If I do any demo sessions, which are usually 20 to 30 minutes, we do a hand pollination activity on this plant. So like right up here, you can see there's a flower. That's one of the ones that I would take a Q-tip with, and we do a hand pollination activity with this, and that's a lot of fun too because I explain pollination, how it works, how strawberries or the berries form. And I know if you're shouting at the screen right now, it's not a botanical berry. I understand. I understand. But then we talk about why pollination is so critical, why our pollinator friends, the bumblebees and honeybees and other pollinators, are so critical to our survival and getting well-shaped fruit like this. And then I also share, and I don't think I've shared this with you, but you can see these larger fruits on the bottom. We hand pollinate these. So I always keep a couple that aren't hand pollinated, and it's easy to do when this is grown inside because I don't have any bees inside the house. Well, I hope I don't. But this right here, I'm gonna get this closer to the screen so you can see it, but you can see how lumpy that is. It's like really just, I'm trying to get this other flower out of the way. But you see how bumpy and lumpy that is? And then below, you could see that large strawberry that looks like a strawberry that we would typically buy at a grocery store or a farmer's market. If you ever have a strawberry that looks like this, it probably didn't pollinate correctly. So just the anatomy of a strawberry, you have seeds on the outside of the strawberry. Each one of those needs to be pollinated for it to look like this. So if you don't have a proper pollination, it's gonna look something like this. And then in my classes, I always say if you do get strawberries look like this, you need to have a heart to heart with your bumblebees and honeybees because they need to stop slacking off on the job. So that strawberry plant right there, I use liquid fertilizer. So I've shared the fertilizers before. It's Fox Farm. I use Grow Big, so that's mostly nitrogen. I do that at the beginning when it's putting on all that leafy the canopy, and then I switch to a high phosphorus when it starts to flower. And I'll do a side-by-side comparison with this one with the next one I have too, so you can see what the difference looks like. But This next one this is also all-star, so same one, but this plant has grown outside this whole time in Minnesota. So right away you can kind of see the difference in the color of the leaves. So this one I did a what you could call it a top dressing this spring where I added a complete fertilizer. I use Osmocote. I've mentioned that before. But then I added a little bit more compost to the top of the grow bag. Over time, it had settled last year, and now we have ripe strawberries on there. You can see what those look like. So this plant hasn't been inside; it's been outside this whole spring, and it looks like this. That had the fertilizer top off on that. And then this last one, I'm doing a side-by-side comparison. So this one, you could see the leaves are even a little bit lighter. So I didn't add anything to this plant this year. And you can see the difference between this one and my star. So that's the difference in nitrogen fertilizer content. So this one right here, I guess if you want to say I've been pumping it full of steroids, that I don't know if I say that, but it's kind of like this has been getting a lot of nitrogen because I need it to look really, really good. But this right here, the quality is still fine, but you can see the difference in the color of those leaves. And that's as I have a tick crawling on me. There's never a dull moment. I guess that's one thing I could share. Last week I didn't have any renegade, or I should say, I wasn't ambushed by any wasp last week. So that's an improvement over the week before, where I think I told you the story about the carrot bag getting ambushed by a wasp. But those are three different strawberry plants, three different nitrogen or three different fertilizer applications, and that's the difference. So one last thing, side by side comparison I wanted to show you is that you probably know this if you've grown strawberries before, but once again, this is the one that didn't get any fertilizer this year, and this is the one that did. And strawberries have a couple ways of reproducing. One's through those seeds. You can actually plant these seeds. That's how I started my alpine strawberries in the past. You can actually buy a seed packets for alpine strawberries, and then they grow up and they look like little strawberry plants. The second way is through runners, and this is one of my quizzes or questions I asked during my programs. But through the runners, so you got the mother plant. This is already starting to throw some runners out or stolons. The leaves are starting to come out here, and then if I planted this in another grow bag, it's going to put roots down. At some point, that's going to get established as a daughter plant. I can cut off the runner, and then it's going to continue its life. But I want you to look at the difference here. So this one got fertilizer top off this spring, and it's got a couple runners coming out already. This one didn't, and there's no runners in it yet. So just to look at the difference in the color too, you can see this one has darker leaves. This one has more, I think, I guess I could put it like this. This one's had more food to be able to do more of the top end work versus this one. So that's just another side by side comparison of what it looks like when you use different fertilizer programs. And I intentionally did not fertilize that one plant because I wanted to show you what that looks like for that. So, oh, good morning, Michael. Yeah, Michael, you're just in time. You saw the strawberry plants. I know you had some strawberries ripening up this week too, so that's good to hear. Okay, so those are the strawberries. The next one I want to show you was sugar snap peas, and I brought my worst looking sugar snap pea just to show you what they look like when they get upset when we have uh, nasty temperature swings. This one's Sugar Ann. You can already see the bottom of the plant starting to turn yellow. The plant's actually telling me that it's done. So there's plenty of sugar snap peas on there, like this one right here. You can see here. This one, this plant in particular, we're gonna be harvesting today. So it's done because it's telling me it's done. And if you haven't grown sugar snap peas or you haven't grown many of them in the past, you don't want to leave them on the plant too long because they're going to start to get tough, or the skins of the pea pods will get tough. Okay, the next sugar snap pea that I want to show you, it's a very cool plant I've talked about before, but I haven't shown you what the pea pods look like. This is called a royal snap pea plant. I get this from Johnny Selected Seeds, and it's an ornamental edible. So if you haven't seen a purple sugar snap pea, then let me introduce you to a purple sugar snap pea. So right there, that's one right there. It's just starting to fill in, so it's kind of green, but it's gonna turn darker purple. Uh, I have another one right here. That's a little guy that's starting to form, and looks like there's a couple up here too that are starting to form. And then even the flowers, I got some flowers that are opening up right here, but you can see the flowers itself. It's kind of cool because they got some purple in there on those petals. So it's kind of a mix of white and purple petals. I get a little bit closer so you can see that, but it's just a very cool plant. If you've never seen purple sugar snap peas, that's what they look like. And that one's a really good attention grabber too when I'm out and about at my doing my programs because this week, out of all the programs I did, nobody's ever seen a purple sugar snap pea, which is exactly why I bring it, because it's just such a novel plant. And like I mentioned, I love to find plants that have colors that are different than what you would normally grow or see, especially if you're used to buying your produce at the grocery store or a farmer's market. Farmers markets are going to have a lot more variety for this type of stuff too. But as far as what I do, I like to bring the novelty aspect of it too, because it's just there's some very cool varieties out there, especially like that one I mentioned earlier, that the moon and stars. So, uh, Jay says, "Pea plant, I'm so done with the heat." Yep, that's that's basically what the plant's saying is it's done with the heat. But anyway, so just to wrap up, the three strawberry plants with different fertilizer programs, you can see the difference on that. The higher the nitrogen, the darker the leaves are going to get. And then also more fertilizer, or the top off, that plant has had more food to be able to reproduce, not only by growing the berries, but also to start throwing the runners out. And of course, with plants like that, I love it because you buy the plant once and then each plant's putting out multiple runners, so I could just keep on taking the daughter plants and then potting them up and then increasing the inventory of plants that I have. So I think next week I might show you my ginger and turmeric plants again, because this week I noticed they're putting up new shoots. I'm super excited because these are the first tropical plants that I've ever grown, and I have them under covers, trying to take care of them as best I can, because at some point they're going to have to come back inside this winter. I wouldn't dare keep them outside here when the temperatures get cold, because they'll be done. But oh, hey, Food Forest Permaculture, nice to see you. Yeah. Anyway, it's gonna be a warm one here in Minnesota, but thanks for joining me today, and I look forward to growing with you this summer. So take care. Have a great